Good afternoon. This is Darlene, and I'm coming back on this channel again. And what I am talking about is different things that individuals go through in their life and how they heal and recognize the things they need to heal. So I know, I think I left off yesterday at 2.5, where we were, that we had been abandoned and or that was the wound. So we're going to go now into a different segment to where I was from 2.5 to 5 and the home that we were sent to. And that home, even though it was a relative, was not necessarily a great home. So in that home, I would say there was fear, mental abuse, poverty, starving, and that is where, from 2 to 5, during that time period, it's like alcoholism. That's where I saw the first, alcoholics. They were actually bootleggers. So, and what I know now is that grandmother is no longer with us, but the husband she was with at the time was not a biological, it was a step or whatever. Physically abusive, mentally abusive, and with the bootlegging, what ended up happening is we ended up, the fridge was constantly full of alcohol. There wasn't food. And so when we did have food, we hid the food, or I hid the food and divvied it out. And I remember there was like a sliding board on the back of the bed, and I, instead of eating everything at once, I would hold back and put more in that cupboard to feed. So that lasted only 2.5 years before there was a major auto accident. And in that accident, my, I also saw gunshots during that time. It was knives being pulled out. And when that happened, that's when CPS got involved. That was my first interaction with CPS. And then we were taken from that home at 5 years old. So, I mean, when you put all that together, there was bullying. So having to recover from that, it's just a lot, I mean, when you're thinking of that from that age, 2.5 to 5, there is so much fear, not getting enough food, the mental, physical, it was just so much for a child of that age. And that's one thing, when I think of that stuff, it's like, I always say my childhood taught me how not to teach a child. And in that, I think it gave me better parenting skills. And I also understood that their alcoholism induced what a lot of their behavior. And so until somebody is ready and wanting to face whatever trauma they're holding, they will always have an addiction. I mean, you're never fully healed. I truly believe you're never fully healed. You're always healing something within you as it comes up. And with that, I mean, I've been to trauma therapists. He was a Buddhist. He was amazing. I've been to other therapists, but a lot of time when I've gone to seek therapy, counseling, and it's a great thing to do if you've been through anything that's traumatizing to you. It was, but the alcoholism, I can say, because of everything I had seen in my childhood, I had bouts with alcohol in my teens and then early 20s. After that, though, I realized the alcohol just wasn't for me. And so I just, I have one drink if we go out to a nice dinner, or if we're out and about, special occasions, things like that. Very rare do I even have alcohol in my home. But that is one place that I know how addictions happen a lot of the time is there's always an underlying issue. What is the root issue? Because they're suppressing emotions. We should never suppress emotions. At least I don't believe we should, because releasing those emotions of anything that has been traumatic to you is so vitally important. It truly, truly is. It is for individuals to release pent-up emotions that at the time you couldn't show. And a lot of times, I've seen where parents are, don't cry, don't do this, it's for the child's sake. They need to release those emotions because they were hurt, and they need to be able to feel comfortable enough to release those emotions, even as adulthood. Those emotions just need to be released, let go of. And letting go is so beneficial. And forgiveness, because those individuals, they obviously went through something that made them have that addiction or let the addiction control their lives. And that is something for us, as all adults, we grow. It's not for us to hang on to. It wasn't our mistake. It wasn't our issues for their reactions. It's not any burden that any person should carry based on someone else's reactions. Not only their reactions, but also what others people say. Because abuse can also be verbally. I mean, I myself, I know I used to be extremely reactive, but you had to take a lot to push me to a certain point. And when I was reactive, I can actually say, honestly, I do not react anymore. And it is the most beautiful thing, because people are going to do what people are going to do. You have no control over anyone except for yourself. And that is where our lives are. You only have control over yourself and what you do with your life. So it is up to each individual to understand that, okay, what are my reactions? What is it that I'm feeling? What am I doing? And that gives you a place to stop, and that you can feel your own emotions, know that you're having a reaction within your body, and realize that sometimes those emotions are not yours. They're actually someone else's. So if someone's attacking in a different way, or that you're actually, sometimes as an empath, you are actually feeling their emotions. So until you get yourself in a space of alone, then you'll actually realize what are your emotions. And I can actually say Dr. Diaz, who used to be in Portland, she's no longer there now, but she had a model that was called, a company called Figure It In. It's called the DOT model. I think it's still on YouTube. But it is absolutely, I think, vital. I mean, it's something that I would say that needs to be taught everywhere, because she teaches how the emotions oscillate within you, how you can go from, depending upon your circumstances, go from very calm to how some people go to rage. And, there are certain circumstances, and I've seen it myself, where people have gone to rage lots of times. And it's like, that's just like a PTSD moment on the other side, And so there's always ways of dealing with what has happened, but we have to give people compassion and understanding. They did what they did with their life, but even though you were the child, each individual has their own choices. And like, as myself, as my child, when I was a child and how I grew up. Yeah, it gave me certain tendencies, but it's learning that, you have a choice. Okay, you're going to go towards the light or you're going to go towards the dark. So each individual has their own map system. So it's that individual has to make the choice. Oh, am I going to follow suit or am I going to choose a different path? I chose a different path. Like what I'm doing right now is completely different than anything I've seen somebody else do. And, it's a healing journey either way that we go through. And, I have specific things that I've done throughout my life that have helped me overcome issues, like with my dyslexia. My professor gave me a lot of training tools and stuff, and so I can do left, right, right, left. I don't make mistakes like I used to and things like that when I was younger. And it's, I think it's kind of made me a little bit more diverse. Either way, that's kind of what I had down for today, is we have a choice. We have a choice to go towards the light or towards the dark. There is a gray path. You acknowledge your shadow. Absolutely. Everybody has one, but it's recognizing it within yourself. When that shadow part comes up, that, no, that's not me. That's not the way I am going to be. I will respond versus react. And, one of the things I can say also is you have a choice whether to keep those people in your life or to let them go. In a lot of cases, it's best just not to associate, to keep yourself healthy. And in a lot of cases, that's what I've done. I've walked away, and that's just not what I'm going to have in my life. And with each individual, you just have to decide, what's best for you. And when you're trying to heal yourself, there's lots of steps to go through in that healing. And I'm not going about that, but I'm just giving you, ideas about how I have done it. Everybody knows that raging is wrong. Although it's kind of like the other day, everybody has their little rage road moments, when you get upset that people aren't going fast enough or low enough. That's probably the only time I ever get upset now. And I was riding with my dad the other day, and it would crack me up because here he was yelling and cussing at all the drivers on the road. And I looked over at him. I said, now I see where I get it from. So it's just, it's just one of those things that you go through in life. And, that's probably one of my areas that I'm still trying to work on. Although, certain things give different people characters. So, to each their own. I think everybody is uniquely different for a reason. Everybody has a gift within them that the divine, God, source, whatever you want to call the highest power, within each person. And it's pulling out that that's within that person so that they can help the world. And I think that's what we're all here to do. We're all here to help each other. And there just needs to be a little bit more of us that are on the healing path, learning who we are, what we like, what we don't like, learning boundaries, learning, different areas. And I think that's it for today. And we'll go on to something else tomorrow. We'll go from 5 to 7, it looks like, tomorrow. And we'll go over some of the issues and how we get through them. And everybody have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.